Welcome back. Today's class is going to be object-oriented programming. First, we have to understand what do you mean by this object-oriented programming? OOP, OOP. Sometimes we used to call it as in acronym. We used to call it as OOP. I can say object-oriented programming is an approach of programming. So, what do you mean by this? Let's take another approach and we will compare. Then you can understand what is approach and what are the two approaches. Multiple approaches are there, by the way. Just we are going to compare the object oriented programming approach and a procedural programming approach. This is the approach in terms of procedural programming. The code is divided into procedures. Procedures is nothing but functions. It is all about functions. The whole code will be, the whole program will be divided into functions. Each function will be performing some specific operation. When you put together properly and you call the functions appropriately in a proper sequence, such a programming approach is called as procedural programming. Now, if you talk about if you remember how do we create user defined functions in Python, already you have some idea about user defined function creation, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Actually, only if the code is divided into functions, it is called as a procedural programming approach. Only it focuses on functions and methods. But object oriented programming is not dividing the code logically in terms of functions and methods. It is focuses on objects and classes. First, you understand object oriented programming approach focuses on objects and classes, but procedural programming approach focuses on functions and methods. This is point number one. Why we need a objects and class approach? What do you mean by procedural programming? The lack of procedural programming. First, sequential programming. Write a program. Start writing line number one. If you are developing a software of 10,000 line, you can go up to 10,000 line by line it will be executed. Your task is accomplished, but it is tedious. Maintaining the reusability is not ensured, finding the error and bug fixing is difficult. Many problems are there in that sequential approach. So we divide the code into functions and methods in procedural programming, which was even today also it is used, where each function will perform a specific operation. Now the thing is, if we talk about functions and methods, I hope I have covered the topic of creating def. Using def you can create functions, yes or no?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yeah. If you divide the code into various components, each function will be performing a operation. Lengthy program is broken into small pieces logically, meaningfully, and such a programming is procedural programming. What is the problem with this? It is not a approach where the real world problem is resembling. That is not the structure of a problem. Whatever the real world problem we face, we want to solve that problem. The problem is not like functions and methods. Everything is not like that. It is if it is not resembling with the real world, little bit difficult to solve very complicated problems. Why? Because the procedural programming approach is not resembling with the real world. It means that real world is something, programming approach in computer is something different. It is mismatching. Because of that, solving the problem is bit becoming tedious, difficult. How object oriented programming is approaching? We know that in this world, if you take any problem, that problem exists in the world we want to solve. If you take a world, everything is object. I'm an object, you are an object, the mobile you are using an object, I'm sitting in front of a laptop, it is an object. Everything is object. If the problem is resembling with the real world, this approach gives that idea. Treat any problem as objects and classes. Approach in this way to solve the problem that will be more resembling to the real world. That is the main difference. In summary, I can say object oriented programming approach much more resembles, matches with the real world problem. Solution will be bit easier. Procedural programming is not resembling with the real world problem, the solution approach. So it is a tedious approach to solve the real world problem.
Sir, sir,
Yes,
sir, voice is stucking, sir, sometimes.
yeah, it is very much cloudy here also, Narasimha. How are you feeling now? Is it
Yes,
okay?
sir. Yes,
Now
sir.
voice is okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't know because I'm sitting in a very open place only. Again, cloudy season networks are not good. You know, our textual browsing will be convenient, but voice, audio, video will be difficult because it is heavy data to be transmitted over network. Now, what I
Okay,
was
sir.
saying is, OOP method resembles the approach resembles with the real world because it approaches the problem solving in the form of objects and classes. Procedural programming is not doing that. It treats the problem into divided into pieces called as functions and methods. This is the important thing first you have to understand. Next, you have to understand some terms. What is a class? I used the word classes and objects is the thing that the object oriented programming approach focuses. Why it is focusing on objects and classes? What is class? Classes are defined by the user. Class provides the basic structure for an object. It consists of data members and method members that are used by the instances of the class. This is the description about class. I can explain you by means of a simple example. It is available in your PDF. If you think building as an object, if you think building as an object, a constructed building is sitting in front of you. You are watching that. It is an object in the world. For object oriented programming also it is an object. Now, before constructing the building, you prepare a sketch or model in the paper how the building should be. Sometimes it is called as architectural design or blueprint, something they will call it as by the civil engineers. First, you are doing some paperwork. How should be the building? Where should be the floor? Where should be the doorway? Which is the exit? How many rooms will be there? Everything you are deciding. The civil engineer decides and prepares a sketch or model for a building. In object oriented programming, if you prepare such a paperwork, it is called as class. It is called as class. First, in the beginning, you have to understand this. What is a class? It is nothing but a sketch or model for creating an object. In our real life example, we can say the blueprint plan is or sketch or model that you are creating in paper is a class for a building object that you want to create. Now my question is, very important question is, now you have a ground plot, blank plot is there. Your engineer has prepared a sketch or model in the paper. It means that building is standing. Yes or no?
No, sir.
No, it didn't come into existence. Yes.
Yes, sir.
If you implement the clause, that means the sketch or model, then something a object is standing. It is created that you can use. Yes.
Yes, sir.
If I it will be a little bit vague to ask the question. I'm saying in the sketch model it says rooms are available, bedroom is here, kitchen room is here. Can you start cooking or taking rest in your bedroom because the paper is ready? It's not possible, right?
Yes, sir.
The same thing is happening in our object oriented programming. Class is a blueprint plan for creating objects. What is object? Instance of a class is called as object. Instance means what? How the building sketch and model is available. It has been created physically. It is standing actually. The building is ready now. We can start using. That is called as instance of the class. Instance of the class, nothing but object. If I ask you what is meant by an what is instance? An object is instance of the class. What is an object? Object is nothing but a instance of a class. You can use the instance or object. Most of the time we will be using object, the word object. Now another thing also I want to ask you. You have a sketch or model for a building to construct. Can you use the same sketch or model to create more than one building? Is it
Yes,
possible?
sir. Possible, sir.
Yeah, similarly, here also, if you create the class, the sketch or blueprint plan in programming, then you can create as many objects you want based on that class. Using a single blueprint plan or sketch or model of the building, you need only one model. You have to create any number of building. There is no limitation for that. If you go to any layouts in Bangalore, they are having the same structure of buildings, 100 houses. How they created? Because a real estate businessman has created a single class called as blueprint plan. After that, he constructed 100 houses. Now the objects are ready. That means houses. You understand what is the what is the word class and object is referring to?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is real world example that I am comparing because object oriented programming easily you can compare with your real world. Now I am coming to another thing. Class is containing in our programming, how do you create a class? What it actually contains? If you ask in a building objects sketch, you will say rooms are available, floors are available, doors are available, some things are you are showing. It contains data members and methods that will be used by the instance of the object. What is this means? Please be carefully follow the explanation because it is in the beginning. You have to understand the theory. Narasimha, my voice is clear now so far.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Gautami, how
Breaking.
still it is breaking?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
My God, what can I do? Wait, I'll open some more windows and all. I'll check what happens. Oh, how is the voice?
Now clear, sir.
Yeah, I have kept even more spaces open. Actually, my room window, the door is and all the things are open. Just my window was closed
Sir,
due to my cold. Okay,
sir,
yeah.
if you have earphones and please connect that laptop, sir.
Okay, one sec. I'll check one sec.
Okay, sir.
फसिया मेरा हेडफोन देवा just I'm arranging. Will it be changing? Because network is the problem now, Nasima. Voice is not an issue because when we record locally, our system is perfectly recording. I don't think we have a problem with our recording and voice system locally. My voice is now
Sir,
audio.
in online class, it is daily routine, sir. This problem is coming, sir, daily in online classes.
Oh, in recording also it is coming, or only in online
Yeah,
classes it is coming.
yes, sir. Oh, online classes
Yeah, yeah.
and
So
recording also.
recording also means only in online class recording it is happening.
Yes, sir.
In online class recording, is it happening?
Sir,
No, no. What I'm asking, whatever the class that I'm conducting in online,
okay.
when you listen that video in YouTube, that is also giving you problem.
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Sometime.
Is it Gautami? Have you heard like that?
Yes, sir.
That means when I am not in offline, when I am in online, that is also a problem.
Hmm. Yes, sir.
My God, what can I do? Actually, the problem is, I think the software that I'm using to record the sessions, it seems it is taking through the online version because the projected online version is the thing that it is recording. Because of that one, directly my voice is not recorded from the local system. It is recorded through the Google Meet. That's why probably you are getting the breaking voice also. I hope so far no breaking, right? So far, is there any breaking,
No,
Gautami?
sir. No, sir. It's clear.
Okay. What about Nasima in your for your side?
Yes, sir. It's clear.
Yeah, yeah. I hope it should not be disturbing and consuming our time. I have kept my environment very open place. Now, focusing on the topic, what I was discussing is object oriented programming helps us to understand a problem very much resembling with our real world, how the real world problem exists. Accordingly we can understand in the solution space when we start writing the program. For that one, I told you sketch or model and creating a object called as building. Class is nothing but a sketch and model to create a building. In our programming language we don't call it as a building, we call it as object. You can create anything. Say for example, if somebody is creating a car, they may have a sketch, it is class. For example, somebody want to design a bike, another type of object. First they need a sketch of that bike. So we call it as class. As soon as they create that object, we call it as object. Using the sketch of bike, they have created thousands of bikes. All the thousands of bikes are having a unique ID called as engine number and chassis number. By means of that one, even if it is same year, same minute it is produced, again we can say two bikes are standing, they are not same. Why? Some engine number is there in every vehicle and some chassis number is there in every vehicle, which will differentiate that bike from one another. Same model, same company, same time it has been produced, again we can say it is having two different identity. So we can differentiate two objects. Here in object oriented program, everything is dominated by the concept of class and objects. Class is a blueprint sketch to create an object, the real world object. What is you are creating a class with? Class is containing nothing but data members and functions. We don't call it as functions in the context of OOP. We say it is methods because functions are not independent here. They are part of objects. They are part of objects. Now, what is data member? When we use the word data member, we say that a variable defined either a class or object, it holds the data associated with a class or object. Simple variable you are using. If you use in the context of OOP, we call it as data member. We don't call it as a normal variable. Why? It is not independent. It is associated with a class or object. That's why we call it as data member. Okay. What is instance variable? A variable that is defined in a method. Its scope is only within that object that it defines it. Instance variable. What do you mean by instance variable? A variable that is defined. You are using a variable in a method that can exist within the object. It cannot be accessed from outside the object. In such a scenario, we call it as instance variable. What is a class variable? Three different variables we are talking about. Data member, also a variable. Instance variable, also a variable. Class variable, also a variable. A class variable that is defined in the class and can be used by all instances of that class. That means if you call some class variable, it is available to all the objects whichever is created based on that class. That is class variable. Instance, I said the other name for object. What is instantiation? The process of creating object based on a class. You created a class, you want to create some objects based on that class. The process is called as instantiation. What is method? Methods are the functions that are defined in the definition of class and they are used by various instances of the class. Method means you have defined a function. As you know, functions, how to create using def keyword. You have created a method inside a class that will be available to all the objects of that particular class. Then it is called as method. What is function overloading? Function overloading is nothing but a concept in object-oriented programming, which is called as more than one time it will be defined and with different behavior. Different behavior means the code will be different. It is called as function overloading. In another word, functions are defined with the same name. Two functions cannot have the same name. But in object-oriented programming, it is possible to create. Two functions can have the same name. But behavior, code inside that function will be different. Such a process is called as function overloading in object-oriented context. What is inheritance? You know the idea. For example, you could have heard in your childhood, see, he looks like his father. It means that The appearance of your face you have inherited from your father biologically. The same biological concept that exists in our real world is adopted in object oriented programming. That concept is same word we are using, inheritance. First you understand biological real world inheritance. One creature can inherit the characters and behavior of their ancestors, father, grandfather, etc. Such a process is, such a thing is in biology called as inheritance. What do you mean by inheritance here in object oriented programming? A class can characteristics of another class, behavior of another class. In such a situation, we say that inheritance has occurred. We are going to explore all these concepts in our program. Some other points are also there, and data encapsulation and polymorphism. The concept is the concept of data encapsulation. Just briefly I'm explaining you the theoretical idea. One by one we are going to what it is called as implement with the help of program. What is data encapsulation? In OOP, restrictions can be imposed on the access to methods and variables. Such restrictions can be avoiding to accidental modification in the data are known as encapsulation. Encapsulation is an important feature of OOP. What is data encapsulation? Combining the variables and the methods that will operate on those variables. This type of process is called as data encapsulation. Variables and functions are wrapped up, packed. Such a packing process is called as object-oriented concept, data encapsulation. We are going to see by means of example also. Now what happens if you declare a variable inside a class, another class from the outside another class in the same program also cannot access directly. The program has to provide some mechanism. The class has to provide some mechanism to access those variables. Such a mechanism is called as getters and setters. Some methods or functions are, please try to understand wherever I'm using method, the equivalent word of function in object oriented programming. Why we differentiate? Because function exists independently, but method don't exist independently. It is associated with classes and objects. That's why we use a different term. Getters can get the value from a variable residing inside a class. Setters can assign the value for a variable inside a class. Simply a equal to 10, b equal to 20 you cannot do if the variable is inside a class. You have to use a method to set the value. Otherwise, it will not permit you. This is called as data security that is provided by the object-oriented programming. Accidentally, no programming segment can modify the data with only the permitted methods alone can access the values inside the class. Polymorphism, poly means many, morphism means forms, structures. Polymorphism. Nothing but polymorphism is the concept using which we implement function overloading. Say for example, you can have a class called as a shape and another class called as a triangle, another class called as circle, another called square. All they have draw method. Method is same, but when you call the draw method of triangle, it will draw triangle. If you call the draw method of circle, it will draw circle. If you call the draw method of square, it will draw square. So this is multiple forms. Draw can have multiple forms. Such a concept is called as polymorphism. Please understand, poly means many, morph means forms, structures, many structures. Now, how do you create a class definition? Simply we put the class definition in program starts with the keyword class, after that name of the class, colon, after that the code of the class. Now what is it means? Optionally you can include a comment statement, something called as doc string. Something called as doc string. A local namespace is created by a class where all the attributes, data or functions are defined. Special attributes with double scores are also present. Doc gives the doc string of that class, uh, and some as soon as the class is defined, a new class object is created with the same name, which allows the access to the different attributes, also an instantiate new object of that class. Say for example, I am creating a class like this. If you are observing the page number 238 in your textbook PDF, one example is there: class student, fill details, def print details. Only two functions: name, branch, year. Fill details. Now, in the same page, I can say student is a class that contains two methods defined. One is called as fill details, another one is called as print details. Now, uh, here I will stop. Let me demonstrate a simple program. Now, I'm going to create a class called as student. After that, colon. After that, I'm going to define, as usual, the way you are defining a function, like that method is also defined, but it is not independent. It is defined inside the class. That's why we call it as method. Fill details. Now, in this method, we will give self, comma, name, branch, year. Name, branch, year. Here one colon. Now I'm going to write the code for fill details method. I'm going to use the word self name equal to name, self branch. Otherwise, if it is confusing you, I will make the variables short. N refers to name because they are two different variables. Y refers to year. Branch equal to B. Year equal to Y. That's it. And another function or method I'm creating, def fill details. After that, another one is printing the details. Print details. How can you print? Print details. What are we going to do? Print name of the student, comma, self name. Print uh, branch of study, self branch. And then I'm printing after branch year of study, self year. also self should come. Okay. Now I can say, now I can say this is the class definition. Class definition. Class definition ends here. Now things are okay. Now I created a class. So far clear now? My voice and the code that I have typed, is it making some sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now, two things are there. Two things are there that will be confusing you. The only thing is a word additionally we have used called as self. What is the use of self? It is not something that it is unnecessary. It is required there. Whenever you use any method inside a clause, the first argument will be self. The first argument will be self. In the fill details method, n, b, y are three variables. They are arguments of the fill details method that will receive the values of n, b, y. But the first argument is self. But in print details, there is no argument. There is no variable to send value for. But again, only one parameter will be there. It is called as self. And number two, except this class student colon and self keyword, if you remove these two, there is no difference between a procedural programming and a object oriented programming. If you remove that self and you remove the class student colon, it will become a normal procedural programming. But here, by indentation, we are telling the Python that fill details and print details are not independent function or method. They are members of a class called as student. The word student, fill details, print details are something we are deciding. Okay. Now, something what I have shown you here is called as class definition. In my beginning of the class, I said whatever we create to build a building, it is called as sketch or model. This class definition is a sketch or model. Nothing but sketch model for object. If you run the program, you are not getting anything. Are you getting anything? Answer, output. Just I'm running the program. You observe. I'm going to run the program. It is running the program. There is no output. Right or wrong? My voice is clear.
Yes, sir.
Are you getting any output when I run the program?
No, sir.
Yeah. Again, you know that code is available. We have typed some two methods are there. Something we have defined some variable using print statement. Whenever we use print statement, something it will print on the screen in the output. But nothing is happening. Why? You just created the sketch. Building is not created. Please understand in this stage, just you have created the sketch model for your building. But you didn't create the actual building. If you create the actual building, then you can start using that building. Class definition is nothing but a sketch. It will not, when you run, nothing will happen. When you create an object of that class, it means if you create a building of a particular sketch, that building can come into existence. To do that one, nothing. Very simple. Now, what are you going to do? In your PDF, I'll show you the page number. Uh, If you see in page number 216 in the top, they are saying some information like S1. It is very simple to create the building now. Student, after that you have to put double parenthesis. What I have done here, name of the class and then parenthesis, two parentheses has been put. You know that student is not a method, it is a class. Again you have to follow this syntax rule. It is not a method. Usually method or function name ends with the opening and closing parenthesis. But here you have created a actual object. This line is called as S1 equal to student opening and closing parenthesis is nothing but instantiation. The process of creating an object based on a class. Here in our example, S1 is an object that has been created based on the blueprint plan student. Now done. If you want to utilize the building that you have created now, start using the building. How? S1 dot fill details. For example, n equal to, first self you don't need to supply the value. For self you don't need to supply the value when you are calling the fill details method. Only in the definition it is required. Self is required. Further you will understand why we are using self. Now the name of the student is XXXYYY. What is the branch? Computer science. What is the year? For example, I can say 2022. Like this, I am calling S1 dot print details. What I am doing? I created the object and I am utilizing the object. Now I have created the object. Now I am utilizing the object. Here, this line is called as and what is this? I'll use this one. This is what I'm doing here. Here what I'm doing, invoking the methods of the object S1. Now I want to run the program. What it says, student, error is displayed. I'm checking the error. Okay, here one year is missing. Are you getting the output now? Are you getting the output?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So now what we have done, we have, you can ask me, sir, we can print the name of the name, branch and year of the student directly. Why we need like this? Accessing the variable name, branch, year that resides in the inside the variable class student cannot be done directly from the outside. We are protecting the three variables. Only the fill details method can assign the value to the internal variables. That is what the mechanism. And if you want to access the values of name, branch and year of that class student class, you have to use another method called as print details method. Somewhat it is like setter and getter methods. Setting the value to the variable, getting the value from that. Whatever you have seen is the simple basic example for data encapsulation. Data and methods are wrapped together and something has been done in the program. Now let me copy this one and I will paste it in your WhatsApp. Now moving on, it is loading. I'll copy paste. This is the way you are creating. Now I want to know, can I create only one object or more than one object? Again, we are going to enhance that. In my discussion, I told you blueprint plan is only one, but not the class. See, I can create S2 student. I can create S3 student. Now, how many objects has been created based on the class called as student? How many objects? Yeah. So now what I'm going to do, I will copy paste here. Three objects has been created. Now I will do. Now also nothing will happen because we didn't set and get the value before getting the values from the variable of the class, because it has been wrapped. First you have to go for setting the values. How can you set the value for the second object? S2 dot fill details. Fill details. Now the name of the student is AAA BBB. After that, branch is something like mechanical engineering. Here is say for example 2020. Again I am going to S3 object. I am calling fill details. Fill details. Now the name of the student is UUU, QQQ, and the branch is for example uh, mathematics studies is 2019. Now for two objects you have set the values. If you want that value to be printed on the screen, you have to call it as print details. Something, this is a method that is available inside the object. Whenever you call the method is same. Print details, print details, print details. You are calling three times in this program. Now you see, I will copy paste this one also. This is called as instantiation. Multiple objects based on a single class. Now I have created. Now I am running the program. For example, if you want to see a appropriate result, for your convenience, I am adding empty print statements inside the program. Usually, we don't need. Just for convenience, I'm running the program. Now you can see three object details has been printed. Actually, it is all the three objects are based on the same class called as student. This program is giving you the typical example of creating classes and objects, the fundamental ABCD in Python. How to create a class, that is class definition. How to instantiate a object, this is the next part. How to invoke a method that is residing part of the object. You have to prefix the name of the method with its object. Object name dot method name. Object name dot method name. So the method is same, but the data is different because S1 is a different object, S2 is a different object in memory, S3 is a different object in the memory, and all are belonging to the same class called as student class. Now let me copy this one also, just to differentiate the program, multiple instances of the same class. Now I'm moving on. Another concept, if you see 8.3.1 in page number, in continuation of that, objects are mutable. In Python, something we have to understand, mutability and immutability. What is this statement says? Objects are mutable. This statement tells us that the state of an object can be changed at any point of time by making changes to it at its attributes. Objects can be mutable. For example, student which was defined earlier. We created an object S1, filled the details using the method called as fill details. At any point, if it is required to change the value of branch ECE to CSE, it can be done in the same object by reassigning it a new value. How can you do that one? Just call that fill details and call it with a different name. Now I'm doing in the same program. I'm doing in the same program. Now what I'm going to do is, after printing this idea, now I'm saying the concept objects are mutable. Can you change the state of an object? Say for example, I'm taking the S2 object. Fill details. Fill details. Here now, the department is ECE. The department is called as computer science. The student name is called as XY. I don't want to change anything. I don't want to change anything. Only thing I want to change is the department of the student that I want to change. Or altogether you can change everything. Say for example, name of the student is PPP MMM. The branch is not computer science for the second student, or mechanical engineer. Mechanical engineering, second student, S2. I'm going to say it is going to be artificial intelligence. Something he is studying. Year is 2022. Now I am calling that S2 print details. First time when I First time when I filled the object with the data values for S2 object, it was AABB Mechanical Engineering 2020. That means the variables residing inside a method that is modifiable. We say that by means of this, S2 value was previously 1. After that, you are changing the value of S2 by means of fill details method. Object status or object behavior is changed, and now you run the program and see that working. Fourth output is also coming. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now for this one, you have to understand that without modifying the memory locations, only the value has been changed because objects are mutable. Okay. Now, okay. Now moving on. Object has been permanently changed. So from the output. Objects can also be passed an argument to a function, and a function can also return an object. What is this? What is this means? Like any other value, say for example, integer value or floating value or character or string value, list, tuple, something you can pass the value to a method or function in the form of an argument. The way we have done in the program, engineering, subject name, some data we are passing to the function. The function n receives the first parameter, name of the student. The second parameter called as b receives branch information. The third parameter y receives the year information. After receiving the data, fill details method creates variables. It is part of the object available inside, and it is assigned with those values. Instead of that one, in case if you want, you can send the object itself as a argument to a function. Now, because you are in the ABCD stage of object oriented programming and you have to practice more and more, you have to check the PDF again, read the PDF that I have shared with you again and again. It will be helpful for you to understand what we are talking about as object oriented programming. Say for example, I talked about objects can be an argument to a function. Instance of a class, it means the copy. Instance means somewhat it is called as copy. Class is not residing as a operational code inside the memory. Object is an operational code. Passed an argument to function in Python. Say for example, we will create a function called as triangle, and we can after that supply values, three values, and we will find out the value for the function. How can we do this? And let me demonstrate that. To create this example, I will be going because uh, objects can be argument to a function. Argument to a function. Now something useful we will create. The example in the program, whatever has been given, I don't want to go with that one because it will create a problem. I will create a full-fledged object. Based on that object, I will calculate the details. Now I'm creating a class called as triangle. Define fill. What it has to fill? I told you everything is A, comma B, comma C, sides of the triangle. Self A equal to A value, self B equal to B value. If this type of definition is confusing you, you can modify the name of the variables. They are two different variables. They are not same. Even if you use like this or like that, or they are self dot A is not equal to self simply A. Simply A refers to the argument. Self dot A refers to the class member. Not to confuse you, I will use like this. C equal to Z. That's it. After that, def.
Sir, can you say one more time, sir? Voice break.
Now, what I'm talking about is objects can be argument to a function. This is what I'm discussing now. Objects can be argument to a function. It means that, for example, in your screen, you are seeing a fill function. It is having x, y, z, etc. the variables. We usually call it as arguments. Instead of passing merely integer values or something else, if you want, you can pass a object as a argument to a function. That is what I'm talking about now. Now I have created self A, self self A, self B, self A, self C. Say again, I'm going to calculate the value area self. Now I have to return the value. Something you will be using the formula perimeter just by means of instead of confusing you, area is having different perimeter. Perimeter is nothing but self A plus self B plus self C. These are two methods. That's it. The class definition is over. I'm putting one line. That is just a class definition. Now I'm going to use that class. How can I use? I'm creating a function. Normal function. Demo. This can receive a parameter called as object. This can receive a parameter called as obj. Here in this one, obj dot fill, I can supply 10 comma 12 comma 15, something I'm supplying. After that, obj dot perimeter. This is a normal function. This function has nothing to do anything with the object, and also it is not part of the class. This the top one is a class definition. The second one is a normal, what it is called as a normal function that we have created. I want to demonstrate you how do we pass the function a object. Now to create an object t, I want to call the class name triangle. Now I created the object t. I created the object t. Now, if I call demo function with the parameter t, t is not a normal variable. It is going to be a object. Now, the actual driver code. This is sometimes called as a driver code, where the program starts. Driver code. Here is the program. Whatever you, if you just I'm deleting these two lines. I'm deleting the two lines. I'm running the program. Are you getting any output in the screen? There is no error actually. Now again I'm running the program. Is there any error or anything is available as output?
No, sir.
Now it will not happen. Nothing will happen. Now you have to write the driver code. This two line is the driver code. Driver code means the code that will drive the program to run and execute and show the output. Only two-line driver code is available. What I'm doing is I'm creating an object t based on the class triangle, and t is going to be a argument to the demo function. That t will be utilized by the demo function. That demo function will call the fill and perimeter methods of the object t. Because of that one, the fill method and perimeter methods will be executed. This is the way the program is executed. If you ask me to explain the steps, please try to understand step number 1. What is happening? Object is created. Object T is created based on triangle class. Now step 2, object T is paused to normal function demo as an argument. That is what? Invoking function, demo function with object as its argument. Also, you can call it as parameter. Because the line is going very lengthy, I will break the line continuation. After that, what is happening after these two steps? Now, demo method or demo function calls fill and perimeter methods of the object T, or here you can call it obj. Obj is the name of the object. It is nothing but name of a variable, something like that. If you don't, a function calls means invoking, invokes. Fourth, what happens? Fill are all the thing that is happening inside the demo function. Fill method fills the values 10, 20, 12, 15 to the object data members A, B, C. Fifth, perimeter method calculates the perimeter based on A, B, C. Hope you can understand now. Now shall I run the program? Shall I run the program?
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Now just you see the two line driver code is the thing that is running the program. What is happening here? I created triangle. It is not showing me output. Just I am checking the code. I am supplying T to obj. Obj fill method is called 10, 12, 15. Okay. There is no print method available. After I will include that print method also in the class because output method is not available. Something called as show method I will include. Show method means it will include the show and print perimeter, or otherwise I can make it here itself. Instead of creating a method there, I can make it output statement here itself so that we can see the output. Okay, now running, you have to see the output. Only two line of the code, nothing but one print statement has been included so that we can see the output. Are you getting 37? That is the total of 10, 12, 15 perimeter of the triangle.
Yes, sir.
If you want, you can make it more in the demo function. perimeter of the triangle. You can make more meaningful so that output will be more meaningful to you. Now, if you understand this program, the sequence how the program is usually executed in a object oriented environment, it will be convenient for you to understand all other idea. Now I have copy pasted this program. Please try to understand. Usually there is a driver code at the bottom of the program. That is the code that should be available to make the objects and methods to work. If you don't give the driver code, it will not work. The program will not be executed and you will not see. Nothing will happen in your screen. Okay, moving on. Objects can return objects as return values. It means, can a method or function return an object? Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. The same program, little bit I can modify. Same program, I can modify little bit. Now I am saying already the object triangle is created. I don't want here this one happening. This triangle happening. I'm removing this line. I'm changing the order. I'm changing the order. How I'm doing? I'm introducing another method or function. Return obj function. This is a normal function. I'm introducing the code here. After that, return t. This is what I have introduced here. Just to demonstrate you that a function can return a value, even not integer or float or character or string. Even it is a object, it is possible. Now in driver code, what are we going to do? We don't call demo function here. We first call return obj function. Just you call that function. After that, the return object is created. T is created. Return object. Now you can have that returned object can be supplied to demo function. Now the only one line of code, just how I have written the order, you remember. Return object is called first. That will return an object for triangle class. In turn, it will become an argument to demo class. This is what I modified. Now the sequence of the program is modified. Now demo class is not called. Here, now demo class is not called. What is the method called? Demo function is invokes fill and parameters. Object T is passed to normal function demo as an argument, invoking demo function with object as its parameter. Now here we have modified. From here onward, things are modified. How it modified? Again I'm explaining you. Object T is created. No, it is not created. In the driver code, first it is, this is not what happening. In driver code, demo function is invoked. Its parameter part contains a call to return obj function. So first return obj function will be invoked. Before demo function. This is what happening. Step number 2, what is happening? Inside return obj function, object t is created and t is returned by the function. Third, now demo function uses the returned object as its parameter to invoke demo function. After that, what will happen? Fourth, inside that demo function, fill and perimeter methods are invoked. Got it now, my friends? Now, hope you will be understanding. If you don't understand also, again read the explanation and the program.